Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to the Creative Economy Power Arts Convention Conversations. It's an honor to have you here with us again today as we continue our exploration of the dynamic and ever-evolving world of the creative economy. Today, we are thrilled to host two exceptional individuals who have made significant strides in their respective fields in Chavez Prokop and Alexandra Darcy. Chavez Prokop is a visionary leader in product design, and joining him would be Alexandra Darcy, a distinguished arts educator. As we delve into today's discussion, we'll be exploring themes of recognition, brand building, networking, and the challenges and opportunities within the creative landscape. Both Chavez and Alexandra bring invaluable insights and experiences to the table, and their perspectives promise to ignite a lively and thought-provoking conversation. We start that conversation with Miss Alexandra Darcy.
Hello, hello. Can you hear me okay? Great.
Alex, good afternoon and welcome.
Good afternoon.
First time in St. Kitts?
It is.
How has it been for you so far?
Magical.
Okay, great.
Yes.
Happy that you're enjoying it.
Yes.
Can you start by giving us a little bit of background, like how did you get started in your field, your chosen field?
So I have a fairly varied educational background. I come from Toronto, Canada. I did my first degree, undergraduate degree in literature at the University of Toronto. And then I did another degree in fine art at OCAD University, which is also in Toronto. And then I did some teaching in the field of fine art, and I was also doing some communications work. And then I did a master's of fine art in England at Central St. Martin's, and I came back and I continued my role as an educator in the arts, and I currently work for the Creative Industries program, which is an interdisciplinary arts and business program at the Toronto Metropolitan University. And I really love that role in particular because I have so much contact with people who are working in the creative sectors, from including fashion and journalism and television and film and interior design. So right across these creative sectors, and there's so much crossover actually. So I'm really engaged with different industries and different people, and then I'm also student facing, where I'm doing a little bit of teaching and lecturing. I'm working with students. We're thinking about how they can bridge from this undergraduate degree in creative industries into the world of the creative industries. And so it's a really interesting professional experience that brings sort of everything together for me, my deep interest in the arts and also in education and communications.
What drew you to art and what keeps you fueled? What continues to fuel your passion?
With regards to education or with regards to the arts piece?
What drew you to art and what fuels your inspiration and dedication to education within art?
So with regards to the arts, I remember painting when I was 5 years old. I remember having one of those magical flow moments when I was 5 years old in school, making a painting and experimenting and doing something that to me was just magic. It really was. It yielded something I had no idea could come. And I was so taken aback by this painting, and then I kept painting and I kept drawing. And I kept on doing that all the way through, and I really loved doing it. And I had some particularly fantastic teachers in high school where I was given the time and the resources and a lot of encouragement as well. And I did very well in all of my art classes in high school. And when I went to university for my first degree, I knew I really wanted to read. I really have always loved reading and thinking about ideas. And so I took arts courses, I took painting courses and did a lit degree. And then eventually I went to art school, because if you really want to make work, real training is the way to get there, I think. So really a good solid period of time where you can focus on your craft and building that craft and understanding what it is and finding, for me, it was to find my way and the work that I wanted to make and what was going to pull me forward. And I have a really deep belief in the arts as something that tells us what it is like to be human in this world. It is a profound piece of us that I think is so important. It's so important to me, and I think it is so important to our culture as well.
How do you see the role of arts in education changing, especially now that we live in the digital age?
I think arts education is incredibly important, and first of all, it needs to be integrated into school, ideally from quite a young age. There is the piece of kind of understanding and embracing and enjoying the arts. So when children get a lot of exposure to the arts and different forms of the arts, there's more of a chance that they will attach to something, that they'll engage with it, and that they'll be interested in other examples of the arts. In terms of how it's changed with the digital age, you know, the arts, creating and making work it still requires both thought, which is the conceptual, and dexterity. Now, we have a lot of digital tools that can speed the process up for us, which is great. However, we still need to understand what the basic sort of principles and fundamentals are of art, whether it be graphic design or music or dance. If you don't understand why something works and is good, and why something else isn't working as well and isn't as good, then it will be very hard to make great work yourself. And a digital tool can take you there more quickly, but it won't solve those problems for you. It won't tell you your layout is off, or your focal point isn't in the right spot, or you need more contrast in this piece of work. That's something that you need to learn through your training, but I think digital tools certainly do have a place in the world of arts education and more. However, ultimately, we still need, you know, the hand of the artist. We still need musicians who play. We need painters who paint, whose hand is doing the painting, you know, whose fingers are doing the playing. We need the dancers to move their bodies. So it is kind of a very physical thing as well. So I think they really can complement each other, but I don't think it would be an ideal scenario to ever move into only digital, let's say, only working on tablets, never working on paper. That would be such a loss. They need to work together.
Given your advocacy for the inclusion of arts education in the curriculum, what are some of the key elements you think that are needed when building or crafting such a curriculum?
I think that people move at different rates. They learn in different ways. They learn at different rates, and they will attach to different art forms. So if you have visual arts and dance and drama, for example, there's such a good chance that all of your students are going to really enjoy at least one of those, if not more. But also access. If students have art class and music class and theater or dance, if they're given the opportunity to do that every year, all through their education, they'll build their understanding and their appreciation for it. And as they build their understanding and appreciation and skill, from proficiency comes passion. And so by the time you finish high school, you can have really passionate arts practitioners, and they're passionate because they've been given the opportunity to build their skill.
Just to take a couple of steps back, you spoke a little bit about the evolving use of digital media in the creation of art. Given that we live in the digital age, how do you suggest we balance traditional art forms while still operating within the digital realm? Where do you think, how do we balance? Where do we draw the line?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure I would ever even dare to want to draw the line anywhere. I mean, everyone knows in the arts, if there's a line, we will cross it for all artists. So I think that you could certainly have a whole exhibition of digital art wonderful. You can have a whole exhibition of paintings on canvas, also wonderful. You could have an exhibition of found objects and assemblages, also great. I think when there's exposure to lots of different kinds of art forms, then people will appreciate and understand the value of lots of different art forms. However, I wouldn't create a hierarchy that digital is better, that digital art is better than any other kind of art form. So in terms of balancing it would be about giving the opportunity to really be able to draw, to paint, to act, to dance, the physical movement, as well as create using digital tools.
Your thoughts on the impact of arts education or the exposure of arts education, different art forms, to one's personal development and academic performance?
Sure. So there has been so much research in this area, and it has been shown that arts education from a young age, continuing all the way through, helps with children's emotional development. It helps building confidence. It helps with creativity and innovation and problem solving. It gives students as well, sometimes it gives students a chance to shine when they're not shining anywhere else. So maybe we have a student who is a brilliant musician and is not doing as well in history class, but he knows that when he's going to music class, he's going to do so well. But aside from that opportunity, the skills that they are learning in art are portable to other areas of their life. So whether or not they stay in the arts, those skills, that problem solving, the innovation, the ability to work with others sometimes or think outside the box, all of those have shown to give students a kind of emotional resilience and really has helped their academic performance in other areas as well.
Pension for advocacy. Are you satisfied? What are your thoughts? Let me phrase it this way. What are your thoughts on the inclusion of arts education in the general curriculum? Do you think more should be done in that regard?
Always. Wherever we are, I think more should be done. No matter where I go, I always think more should be done. And here is the thing. So for example, in North America and in Canada, sometimes the arts budget is the first thing to go. And when budgets are tight, and they are often tight, what can we cut? It will be, the cut will go to art first, and then it will come closer and closer. And so there is a kind of idealization of STEM courses at the expense of arts courses, and this is doing such a disservice to the students who, through their arts classes, would be building such good skills, such resilience, such emotional development, both motor and cognitive development through the art classes, as well as learning how to appreciate the arts and the history of the arts, which is part of our culture, of course. And so I deeply believe that the arts, in all of their various strands, should be integrated into primary and secondary school, perhaps giving students a little more choice as to what they'd like to take as they get a little older and they're teenagers. But I really think it should be threaded throughout the entire school process to help students build all of those skills that we just talked about and give them the opportunity to really to try, and to be involved. And as you go through that, if you come out having learned a lot about lots of different art forms, there is more of a chance that you will appreciate different forms of arts as well. And as a citizen, when you appreciate the arts, you will go and you will go to events, you'll go to plays, you will support the arts, and that is so good for the arts community in your society as well. So whether or not you become an arts practitioner, maybe you won't become an artist, but maybe you will then support the arts, and that is fantastic for the arts community as a whole.
That brings me to my next question. What, in your opinion, is the role of arts education in supporting the creative economy?
I think so much of it actually really begins with arts education. I've already talked with people in various sessions here, and we all know whether it's here or in Canada or anywhere in the world, often our parents would like us to go into very stable jobs. Could you possibly be a lawyer instead of an artist? You know, how to break your parents' heart, tell them you want to be a painter. So there is it is a process for people to enter into the arts, but when they are going through arts programming in school and they are succeeding year after year, their art teachers are saying, you know, your daughter is so talented, your son, I think he might have a future in music. And they see their children build skills and perform and make incredible things. That can bring parents along as well. And then you can start to see that there are absolutely opportunities for artists in the creative economy as well. The creative economy can be a powerful force, and there is a lot of room for growth as well. And so when you have arts education in schools, you have more people appreciating arts, you have more people practicing arts, taking on arts, becoming arts entrepreneurs, then that can then open up the creative economy and increase the size of the creative economy. So I think it can have a really direct positive effect on the economy itself.
As an arts educator, what do you think, or what methods and mechanisms do you employ to help shift the general mindset of, I guess, parents as it relates to their response, their initial response to arts education or to their children pursuing something along those lines?
How do I deal with the parents? Well, at this point, I am dealing mostly with university students, and so those students have already decided that this is a direction they want to go in. So they have fought the battle at home already for the most part. However, the program that I work with is it's an interdisciplinary arts and business, and I think that really gives a relief to a lot of parents because they think, well, they're in the arts, but there's this business component, so they're learning about the business of things. So that's for now, and that's for where I work. But with regards to when I was working with secondary school age, like high school age students, I would meet with parents all the time, and some of these kids were so talented. And then we could have a discussion about the many, many excellent jobs that exist in the creative world. You know, as an artist, you don't just have to be a fine artist practicing in a studio by yourself and having shows. There are so many other things that you can do. There are so many other jobs that you can do. In terms of the design world, well, look around you. This entire world is designed, and it is designed by people. So there are enormous opportunities and well-paying opportunities in the world of art and design. And sometimes, if that is the worry of parents, sometimes it's about leading them to understand how many different jobs are available to their children later on and how much opportunity there really is.
So do you think that more effort should be extended then towards educating the masses about the jobs that are actually available? Do you think that would help in shifting the mindset as it relates to pursuing arts and arts education as a career?
I do think that that's really useful. Every year for the university, we have a recruitment event where people who are considering coming to our program, they're usually 16 or 17 years old. They come with their parents, and the students want to know what is the curriculum like, and the parents want to know what kind of jobs can they get. And we have a list of different kinds of jobs in different sectors. And when I say the creative sectors, I'm including for them, film and television and animation and game design. And there are sectors that a lot of these parents had never even thought about. But within those sectors, there's all kinds of roles that most of the parents have never heard of before, especially as some of these sectors are quite new. So in gaming, for example, what does a producer do? What does an operations person do? There are so many different levels and very well-paid positions in gaming companies. You could do marketing and PR for gaming. In each of the creative sectors, there are a whole host of different roles. And so we provide a list to the parents, and we talk a little bit about these different roles so that they can envision a real future, because they want to make sure that when their children graduate from university, there is a next step, there is a bridge to something else, and we want them to know that there is something else. There absolutely is a bridge to gainful employment in the creative sector.
As we prepare to wrap up, my next question is twofold. What advice do you have for creatives who are hoping to venture into the world of art? And what advice do you give to people pursuing arts education?
So for creatives, I've had discussions over the past 2 days with many creatives, and not just here. I've had discussions my whole life with creatives who are making their work. They have an art practice of their own, and then they are also doing other jobs to supplement their income, let's say. And it is very easy for those other jobs to take your very precious energy and your very precious time. And you know, speaking of families and people around you who perhaps don't necessarily value art or understand what it is to make work in the same way, not everyone understands that making work requires a deep commitment, deep concentration. It's difficult, it's really interesting, it's quite internal a lot of the time, and it takes time. And so sometimes you'll have family or friends saying, oh, could you just look after my child for a few hours? Or, you know, can't you just do that tomorrow night? It's just painting, or it's just composing, just do it, come on out, come with us. Or if you're an educator, a lot of artists are educators as well, maybe, oh, I just need to do another lesson plan. I need to feed my students. I care so much about the arts, and I want those students to care and to learn and to love it as well. And there's a lot of giving that happens, and sometimes that is at the expense of the boundary. And so my first piece of advice would be to really prioritize your practice. It's great to have a job. It's great to support others in the arts, but you also have your own arts practice, and that means really allocating time and energy and holding that boundary, really holding it, because it's precious. Whether it's 3 times a week from 7 p.m. till 10 p.m., you will be unavailable because you are working, and nothing should be able to touch that time. And that means you have to say no, and everyone else needs to accept the no. So it's really prioritizing your work, and sometimes it's about prioritizing promotion of your work as well, so taking some of that time to promote yourself and your work. So that's for the artist. Now for arts educators, it was advice for arts educators? Okay. I think arts education is so important and so special. And again, you can give it everything you have and more. And so sometimes it as well is about creating a boundary so that you can still maintain a personal life, because you can stay up every single night tweaking your lesson plans and offering more advice and doing a little bit more. So actually for all teachers, boundaries becomes quite an important thing. But art education, I think as well, you want to stay excited and passionate about the work that you do and about the arts.
How does that work for you specifically? Like, how do you stay excited?
For me specifically, it is about looking at new work all the time, engaging with new work all the time. And you're talking about the digital age, like there is so much really interesting work being done. I really love work that involves lighting, like projecting, like map projecting. I am so interested in installation. I love going to arts events and seeing really interesting, cool stuff and what people are making. And if I can really be engaged in some work to the point where I forget everything else and I'm just with the work, that fills me up. And that helps me, because often I want to come back and actually share that experience with students. And I want students to understand how great that experience is and how special. So I think for me, it's being filled up by visiting galleries and participating and seeing new work all the time, and old work as well. You know, visiting some of the old works, because they're always new every time you see them. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Alex, thank you so much for sharing some of your insights.
Thank you so much for having me.
Arts education. And again, guys, be sure to join Alex. She'll be hosting sessions.
Yes, I will.
Right, later this week. So if you want to get more of what you just barely scratched the surface on, because I'm sure there's a lot more that you have to share.
There is.
If you haven't registered yet, you should, and come join her. Thank you so much, Alex.
Thank you so much. It was really nice to meet you.
You as well. So Chavez,
Hello.
hi, and welcome to the hot seat. Thank you so much for, for joining. Could you start by telling us a little bit about how you got your start in product design?
Yeah, sure. Well, first of all, thanks for having me in the hot seat. So I started in product design in, let's say, 2017, I think it was. So my first love for design period came from wanting to learn how to draw. I had a cousin who was really good at drawing, and I wanted to be just like him, but my stuff came out looking like blobs all the time. And then I discovered technical drawing in high school in Washi. And I was like, okay, cool. I could draw with a ruler, and it comes out looking good, so I'm going to pursue that. So fast forward, went to college to study architecture in Atlanta, and halfway through the program, realized that I wouldn't have the kind of creative freedom that I would have wanted when finishing school, because you have all these people come to school and be like, well, you know, all these cool buildings that you're designing, you actually won't be able to do that when you leave school. And so I was like, well, why am I doing this then if I'm just going to have to do what somebody else tells me to do? So halfway through, I decided to change my major to product design because it was very similar. It went from designing physical spaces to digital ones, but the process, etc., is still the same. And also, I just really loved doing it, and because I dabbled in it a little bit here and there as part of the architectural process, and so I fell in love with it. And like Alex was just saying, called my mom and gave her a heart attack that I was changing my major from architecture, which is safe, you know, to return back home and do, etc. And yeah, that's really where the spark began, and just started to like get into it more and more, and I finished my degree doing that.
How did your mom take the news?
Well, at first she thought I was crazy, and then she basically asked me, "What nonsense you're telling me?" That was her exact words. But I told her, like, this is like, if I'm gonna put us in debt for something that I have to pay for, it has to be something that I'm gonna enjoy. And as time went by, she eventually accepted it after talking to other people, and other people telling her, well, you know, this is kind of the future, yada yada.
As a visionary in product design, how do you define innovation in your work, and how do you keep pushing creative boundaries?
Well, I think that's just the nature of the field, actually. You're always constantly problem solving. Like that's what product design is problem solving. And so whether it be problem solving for something that affects an entire country, for something that affects just a few people, you're constantly asking that question of, how can I make this better? You know, how can I use technology, especially new technology, in different ways that haven't been used before to solve old problems? And so if you're constantly looking through that lens, you're more able to you're more able to open up yourself to possibilities. And a lot of it is this idea of, okay, this is what it is today, and it's working. Like, we're sitting in a chair, it's fine, it's doing its job. But there's still probably a way to make this chair better. And so constantly being open to asking yourself, how could things be improved? How could you make it better? That's really the start of ways to use product design to push innovation. Because when you're working at companies, there's like 3 different things that has to come together. One is the customer need or the people need. 2 is the business need, so how will the business benefit from doing this thing? And then 3 is technology. What technology do we have today that can improve this thing or make this thing better for people? And so it's always through the lens of those 3 things with a focus specifically on people. So it's cool to innovate because we have new technologies and so forth, but we want to avoid having a solution that's trying to find a problem.
What, in your experience, are some of the biggest misconceptions or misperceptions about a career in product design?
I think a lot of it is people still don't know what it is, especially here in like the Caribbean. a lot of people, when they hear product design, they think of physical products, which is true. Like that is also a product design, but I think it's one, a lack of awareness, and two, people don't necessarily understand. When people think of design, they think of aesthetics. They think of the way something looks. They don't really think about the work that goes into making sure that it actually solves a problem. You know, so something that I like to say is, art is not design. Design, though, can be art, which some people would find controversial, but when you have a piece of art, it's something you could look at, it's something that you could have a feeling about, but it's very subjective to you, the viewer. Like, it could mean a million things. But when you look at design, it's solving a problem, and it does what it's supposed to do, and you can't deny that it does what it's supposed to do. And so that's why I kind of separate those two things. But you could have something that's design, and you could just think it's beautiful, and so therefore you could also call it art.
What are some of the challenges you've encountered in your journey as a product designer, and how did you overcome them?
Good question. I think the first thing is like imposter syndrome. Just wondering if you're even good enough to be doing this. Because the thing about being product design is you craft these digital experiences that millions upon millions of people are gonna see. That costs companies millions upon millions of dollars to build. And the last thing you want to do is create an experience that people don't enjoy, that doesn't solve the problem. And so you're constantly asking yourself, like, okay, is this good enough? Did I do a good enough job? And you know, having people around to, the rest of your team to like support you and so forth, and help you recognize that like a bunch of designers have this problem, whether they're doing product design or just art in general. It's just sort of common for all of us to experience. And then also impatience. Just like anything when it comes to the arts, you have to practice to get better. And so for me, it was constantly grinding, trying to figure out how to improve X, how to improve Y, and wanting to get better today when I look at other people's work. And so the discipline to just block that out and focus on where you are and where you're trying to get to is not the easiest thing to do. But once you're able to do that, it gives you the ability to really propel and excel much faster than you would have imagined.
What has been the highlight of your career as a product designer so far? What's one project you worked on that you're still extremely proud of?
Okay, I'll tell you this one just because of the impact that it's had. So while I was at Facebook, Meta, I was on the AI team for responsible AI. So basically, trying to figure out how to build AI responsibly and share that with the world in terms of how exactly are we building AI responsibly. So my team was focused on transparency. And so one of the things we wanted to do was try to find ways to help people understand how AI at Meta works and how it does what it does, because people hear AI and they think, oh, it's scary, and and make it worse that it's Facebook and people have issues with Facebook and their data and so forth. Being able to be more transparent is something that could really lend a hand to brand perception, could really lend a hand to just overall general understanding of the way things work. And so we did this project where we basically explained to people how the Instagram feed works. So basically, as soon as you open Instagram, the first thing you see is your feed, and you see different pieces of content, and people want to know, well, why am I seeing this one first versus this one second versus this one third? And so we basically met with policymakers and regulators and so forth in the US and in the EU, did roundtable discussions, did product design together, roughly sketched out, tried to understand what they are looking for. Also, remember I said a big part of it is understanding customer need. A big need was for actual users of these products, specifically Instagram, wanted to understand why their feed behaved the way it did. And so by understanding those two parts to it, able to come up with a framework that sort of like, it's called AI system CADs. And so what the framework does is it basically gives a layout for how companies can explain to people how their AI systems work in a simplified way. So, you know, it's easy to get very technical about AI and models and learning and all this stuff, but we wanted to make sure that whether you were an AI expert or just a student in college wanted to understand how this works, we can explain it in such a way that is helpful for you to understand exactly how things are broken down, the stages that they go through, and also for people like regulators to feel like they have a good sense of what's happening inside of these systems. And so that was really successful because we built it in such a way that it could be used across the entire AI industry. And so now companies like OpenAI and IBM and other companies have adopted that framework to now release their own AI system CADs so that they could also be seen as like transparent around how they're doing things.
I'm going to play devil's advocate. You said they could be seen as transparent, but are they really transparent though?
That will always be the question. When it comes to big companies like this, there's always going to be that doubt of how transparent are they? And there's no way to get around it. Like 50 years from now, we'll still be asking the same question because there's a delicate balance between wanting to be transparent for educational or regulatory purposes versus letting out your secret sauce. You know, and so companies have to be very delicate about that. And also the third one is making sure that you don't reveal things to bad actors. You know, because then bad actors could find a way to reverse engineer this thing that you were so transparent about. So now that they could hack your systems and stuff like that. So you have to keep those things in mind. And you'll always wonder, but the way that I see it is, as time goes by, we'll always get a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. And honestly, I think that's the best way ever going to get.
Knowing what you know about the behind the scenes aspect of things like social media, does that color the way or impact the way you engage on social media at all, or your approach to social media usage?
Maybe just a little bit. I think, well, I might also be a bad person for this because even though I work at a social media company, I barely use social media. But I think it's more so I have the opportunity to like educate other people on like why certain things are happening, and so they have that option to now well decide if what kind of actions they want to take when they're interacting with social media. I mean, some things are beyond people's control. Just like, if you're gonna use it, this is what's gonna happen. So sometimes I tell people like, hey, you're gonna just have to make up your mind. Are you okay with certain things happening? If not, then you should just not use it. If you are, then, you know, it's all good. Because these companies and these products are constantly gonna be trying to like use your data in different ways and all this stuff. And the truth is, you just can't have a certain product experience without certain pieces of data. Like, you probably wouldn't use the app at all if they didn't have access to certain pieces of data so that they could create and craft a really good experience that feels personal to you. So personally, hasn't really impacted my thing, the way I use social media, but I just like to let people know how these things work so that they could make their own informed decision.
Okay, I'm asking this question on behalf of all the Facebook and WhatsApp aunties, right? So a lot of people, a lot of older people tend to think that they're of the opinion that using things like filters and things like that mean that AI and some scary monster behind the scenes is collecting different snapshots of yourself, that they could clone you and make like these crazy images of you that would be used for anything less than pleasant. What are your thoughts on that?
So a lot of that is just, what do you call it? What's that word? Myth. There's so much technology that's in place to, whether it's encrypt or basically make the data abstract, so you can't necessarily, so the company that's behind it can't necessarily do anything with it. And so for you, you may be seeing, oh, AI is applying this filter to my face or whatever, and so it's therefore taking my image and doing things with it behind in the back end, but there are different systems in place to really make sure that, like, for example, your face isn't seen. And so it obscures all of that data. And then another part to that is a lot of the things that you see happen on your phone is only on your phone. It's not being sent back to Facebook and Instagram or whatever. No, don't get me wrong. Not every company and every app is like that, right? It's really mostly the forward-facing companies try to make their products in such a way that a lot of the data stays on your device and doesn't get sent back to whatever entity. But there's still millions of products that send the data back to their servers and so forth. But it really depends on the product that you're using. But for the most part, things like filters and so forth, those things have been around for a really long time, and there's no need for a product to send your image back to a server in order to generate that thing.
Okay, great, thank you. Shifting gears just a little bit. You mentioned earlier on in our conversation that you struggled with imposter syndrome. Have you gotten to a point where you are comfortable with acknowledging your success? And if yes, what was the catalyst? At what point did you realize that, hey, I actually know what I'm doing, I'm good at this?
I still struggle with it. I don't think like I'll ever fully accept, like, oh, yeah, I'm a product designer, I'm so good at what I do. I don't think I'll ever say that, but because I feel like there's always room for improvement and room to grow. And especially when I look at other people who has like the certain level of craft that I'm always aspiring to be, to have, I'll always be striving to go further and further. But I do have moments where I have to sort of like force myself to like big myself up, or to like tell myself I could do this, just because I think it could impede or impact the quality of my work if I keep thinking like, oh, I'm not good enough, or keep inserting negativity into what I'm doing. And so I don't know if I'll ever be able to say like, I fully accept that I'm good at this thing, but something that helps me a lot is just the people that are around me. So a big thing that happens at work is all these different companies are always trying to find ways to, are always trying to figure out how should we appreciate people? How should we let people, how can we help people to feel like they're doing a good job? And so a lot of it gets personal. Like people, your manager would ask you like, how do you want me to talk about your work? Do you want me to put it in a public post? Do you want me to just tell you one-on-one? Like, what's the way to show gratitude for the work that you're doing, to empower you, to help you feel more confident, etc.? And a lot of it is really personal, but when you have that, when you have people behind you that are passionate about showing up for you, letting others know about the great work that you're doing, all of that helps to support me specifically in recognizing that I am actually doing the thing, and I am really good at it. You know, similar to what Kenya was saying earlier about being a model for 20 years, and you know, it's only a few years ago she started to like have that confidence that like, okay, yeah, I actually know what I'm doing. It's basically the same feeling. Like, yes, you have moments of, I know what I'm doing, but then there's still always going to be sometimes that doubt seeping in that like, how good are you actually? So a continuous work in progress.
Okay. I wish you all the best in that regard, and I hope that you get more comfortable as time passes, you get more comfortable with your success. Final question. What advice do you have for relative newcomers to your field or people who aspire to join your field?
I would say if it's something that you're interested in, like designing digital experiences, just go for it. So something that I tell people a lot is you don't need to get a degree, you don't need to go to college. All that stuff is like icing on the cake. It's good to have a college degree, all that stuff, if you have the means to go get it, etc. But if you're really interested in product design, the simplest place to start is just by researching it, understanding what product design is, what does the process look like, and then just looking at a bunch of YouTube videos and start doing things like simple draw a rectangle and sketch out an idea for what an app could look like for a problem that you want to solve. As simple as a sketch is exactly the perfect place to be starting. You don't necessarily need to jump on the computer and start doing all these things right away, but if you have an understanding that like this is about problem solving, creating digital experiences that will bring some sort of enjoyment or improvement to people's lives, and you have that understanding, then you just start scribbling things. You start going on YouTube and you look up how to design this or how to use Figma, which is a software that people use to design these product experiences. And you just start practicing in your own time. Similar to what Alex was just saying, like everything else, it takes time, especially when it comes to app, because it could be very subjective, like, oh, why choose this color? Why make this button this big? And why use this image? And so you could spend hours just going down this rabbit hole of like, what should I do to make this thing amazing? But dedicate the time to actually spend time practicing. Like a quick example that I always give people is when I interviewed at Facebook, I was already working at a creative agency, doing websites, etc. But on the side, I still used to go home and practice and do side projects. When I got to the interview at Facebook, I showed them my official work from my agency, and they asked me, do you have anything else? I showed them my side projects, and that is the only reason why I got the job, is because of the work that I did at evenings, at nights, just practicing. And so just making the time to learn and practice is the best advice I could give.
Great advice, and that was supposed to be my last question, right? But I have one more. Okay. Looking back at your journey, is there anything at all that you would do differently if you could?
Honestly, no. I think it's easy to say, oh, I would have started in product design earlier. I mean, that would have been great. I would have been even further along, you know, but I don't think I would have ever stumbled into product design if I didn't start in architecture. I didn't think I would have made it to architecture school in America if I didn't fall in love with technical drawing in high school, you know. So I think all of these are chain events that, you know, they were just supposed to happen because that's how God wanted it to be. And so I wouldn't change anything.
Awesome. Thank you so much again, Chavez, for sharing a little bit of your journey. Looking forward to hearing more of what you have to say as the Creative Economy Convention continues. Thank you also to Alex for sharing her light and insights during our previous conversation. Looking forward to learning more about arts education as well. And ladies and gentlemen who have been looking on the live stream, thank you again for joining us. We'll be back with more conversations tomorrow.